Ooh, it's bright. I say trouble in paradise. But to be fair, that's a Letterkenny reference. It's hard to have trouble when you're like this. Look at this. Look at this. Oh, incredible. Hello and welcome. I'm Tim, and most of my life I've been dreaming about someday sailing around the world. Although I come from a background of being a professional mariner, I know very little about sailing. So maybe you want to come with me and see how we do and learn as we go. And right now in this series we're getting ready to, we are in the midst of making a 1,500-mile ocean passage from New England down to Puerto Rico. So welcome aboard and come on with us. Hope you like and subscribe. So, here's the deal. Chris and I came back to the boat, and when we got on the boat had been, laid up for 6 weeks at the marina, because I usually have 2 weeks off, and then I come down to the boat again. But on my 2 weeks off, I worked over because some people were sick, so I ended up staying away from the boat for 6 weeks. In that time, I paid somebody at the marina what I think was an exorbitant amount of money to wash the bottom of the boat, to scrub everything down. Now, I've never done that before, and so maybe you guys can tell me if this is common practice. Somebody told me that when they do that, they purposely stay away from your through-hole fittings because they don't want to start any problems that you might have. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. But anyway, forget that I told you that, because I had forgotten about that. All I knew was I just spent $170 to get my, I thought it was going to be like $120, but it was $170, and they were going to clean the bottom of the boat. And I said, all right. And I had just done it before. Before I left, I went and just did a quick clean around the scum line and that sort of stuff. But anyway, we got back to the boat, and the boat is all kind of yucky because it's been tied up for a while, with the hatches closed and all that sort of thing. And one of the things I have to do, I shut the sea cock off that goes to the sea chest. And remember, on this boat, instead of having 1,000 holes in the boat, we have one rather large entry point that has a ball valve on it that goes into one central strainer. We call that the sea chest, and from there it goes to the main engine, it goes to both air conditioners, and then it also goes to the saltwater washdown pump, and then it also goes to both of the marine heads. Now, the problem with leaving salt water that is filled with microorganisms in a oxygen-free environment for 6 weeks at a time, or at any time, is that, this happens even in 2 weeks. A lot of people will go on to boats and they say that when they go in the head, they say, oh, I smell rotten eggs. That's the head smell. And they think it's the poop part. It's actually the microorganisms breaking down, making, I think it's sulfur dioxide. I believe that's what it is. All my friends that are tankermen are going to correct me, I'm sure. Anyway, so this stuff has that awful smell in it. So when I get to the boat, the first thing I want to do is to go to the furthest head away and just start pumping water through. And I'm pulling salt water in and pushing salt water out. The difference is that the water that was in the lines had been stagnant for 6 weeks and kind of yucky. So I start doing that, and water comes, and then it doesn't come, and then I get a little bit of dribble and it's smelling awful, and then I wait for a second, and then I get more water, but then it goes away, and I'm like, that's weird. So I go to the other head, and the same thing happened there. So I'm trying to figure out why. I go and I check the sea strainer, and before I had left, I clean out the sea strainer in the sea chest to make sure that I don't add to the problems of the microorganisms that are already in there. Everything was clean, and when I took the sea strainer out, water came up out of there, so I knew I had flow. I couldn't figure it out, so I figured it must be airbound. Now, before you say I did something really stupid, which I'm fully capable of doing and do many stupid things all the time, But what I did do was thinking that what I really needed was to pull a lot of water through to break whatever air binding problem that I had, because see, like everywhere that I went, I would be able to get water and then I wouldn't get water. And then I'd get water and then I wouldn't get water. And it'd kind of go back and forth like that. So I figured there had to be somewhere there's a loop and an air bubble and it's going down and up. And what I need to do is just pull all that water through and everything will be fine. Well, I decided to take a gamble. And the gamble that I took was that I've put, I think, about 200 or 300 hours on the boat since I've got it. I mean, on the engine, and it had a new impeller when I got it. So and I had tons of water coming out the back all the time, so it was never an issue. But I figured if I started it up, there'd be some water in the engine that would pull everything through, and then it would get a nice wash of fresh water, and fresh salt water, and go through the system and everything would be fine. If I was wrong and I ended up messing up my impeller, it's time to change that anyway. And because I come from a history of being a decky and not an engineer, doing maintenance like that is not exactly my favorite thing to do. So I did that. I started it up, water came out the back, and then a little bit less came in, then it went, and then no water came out. And before I started heating things up, I shut it down. So Chris asked me what I was going to do, and I said, you know what? I think what I really need to do is think, because I knew I was missing something. And then I called one of my buddies, and he's like, yeah, you know, you're probably got your intake on your through hull is probably got like coral all around it. And I'm like, well, if that was the case, I wouldn't be getting water into the sea strainer. And I didn't want to jump in the marina, because it's not that the marina water is yucky. It's just that, I don't know if you can see this or not. See how beautiful this water is? It's crystal clear here. That's not the case in the marina, because they have a lot of runoff. So I didn't really want to get in the marina down there and poke around in the hull, especially when I just got back to the boat and all. So I started thinking, how could I do this? I have a snake on board, meaning, you know, a plumbing snake. So I took the sea strainer apart and took the basket out, and I ran the snake through the hull, through, you know, towards the end of the hull to get toward the water. I had the seacock all the way open, and water is just, because it's like right about sea level, water's just pouring over the top into the bilge. I mean, it's very, very slowly. Anyway, I go, and when you go around the corners and stuff like that, those that have worked a snake understand that you can't just push it through. You got to pop, 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 move it through. Anyway, I got to what I thought was the actual ball valve, and it felt like there was something there. And I go, pop, 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 pop. And then it broke through, and water came flying out of the sea strainer. So what happened is I had gone by the sea, or this is what I assume happened. We're going to take a dive overboard and check out everything now. But I had gone down by the ball valve of the seacock, and the snake had hit whatever was obstructing the through hull and broke free whatever it was, and water came pouring in like crazy. So then I put everything back together. The heads worked fine, the AC worked fine, and the engine worked fine. And the engine, on our way down here from Cabo Rojo to well, we were on the west coast of Puerto Rico at Cabo Rojo, and we went south and then due east to La Paguera, and we did that in about 20 knots of wind right on the nose the whole time. So I had a good 4 or 5 hours of motoring, and I was able to watch the temperature, and the temperature never rose up. So I was happy about that. But there's obviously a reduction of water, or maybe it's psychosomatic, and we'll find that out later on today. But hopefully, if all goes well. But it seems as though there's a lot less water coming through the wet exhaust of the main engine that should be. So that is my task today, well, among other tasks, is that for the first time ever, I have to do a job that I'll probably be doing if I keep this boat for the rest of my life, which I hope to do. I'll probably be doing this a lot. So, and that's changing the impeller. Unlike a lot of Yanmars that have it right on the front of the engine, this one's actually tucked backwards underneath the alternator, which is good because I've seen other engines and other manufacturers that actually have their alternator underneath their impeller, which seems really stupid. If you start dripping any water, you're dripping it right on the alternator. Anyway, that's not the case here, but we're going to try it out. We're going to see how it goes. And before I did anything, I just had my coffee and I pulled out the spare. I've got the previous owner has a box with a with an impeller in it that says used for emergency use only. So I have one. If I tear one up, I have one there. He also had a brand new one ready to go. So before I did anything, I've taken that brand new one, gone over to, as many of you guys know, I'm a big fan of Defender Marine. Went onto my Defender Marine account and put 2 brand new impeller kits in the cart. I'm not going to press order until I get this one on there, just to make sure that I am ordering the right one. So I want to make sure that the one that I take off is the one that I put on, and that sort of stuff. But anyway, that's it. So come along with me and you'll see me, hopefully, God, with any boat projects, the smallest things become great big things. So I just should have to take off the plate and extract the impeller, lubricate and put the new impeller on, put everything back together again. Sounds simple enough. And if I break one of the bolts, I don't know, it's been on there for over a year anyway, because I've had the boat and I haven't moved it. So I've got to take the bolts off, and hopefully I won't break any, and hopefully everything will go, and I'll try to bring you guys along too. All right. That's it for now. Wish me luck. Oh, and then the second thing that I got to do is I got to jump overboard and take a look at the bottom, see how they decleaned it, and also take a look at the through hull to make sure that pushing from the inside out, I'm sure that there's some stuff on the outside that I could clean as well. So that's where we're at. All right, see ya. Okay, so the task at hand, here's the 180 amp high output alternator, and here's the raw water pump and the access to the, or limited access to the impeller. I'm hoping I don't have to take this hose off. I think that I might be able to sneak a stubby in this way and pull it off that way. The thing I'm terrified about is that if I lose one of those screws down in the bilge, I'm done. I had a little bilge grabber that I used in quite a bit this summer, and I went to go use it the other day, and it's rusted up, so I need to get a new one of those. So that's what it is. I've shut off the sea strainer. Here's my Jabsco kit for the new impeller. I'm hoping that a stubby will suffice. Maybe this one if I have room, but I probably don't. A mirror just in case I need it, and then even a little ratchet one if I have to do it that way. Now, those of you that are wondering why, up north, maybe you guys are wondering why I don't have a shirt on. It's not because I'm really proud of my physique. It's because it's the tropics, and anything to do with working on engines seems to get really hot. And so I'm trying to stay one step ahead, because it's really a little early to start hydrating this early, or at least my preferred method of hydration. So I don't know that you're going to have a whole lot to see here, but we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot to see either. I'm going to try the big one first. It's going to be, no, that's not even a possibility of working. Okay, so far, not so good. First try is not working. I might have to switch over to that ratchet. Yeah, they're put on there a lot tighter. And I don't know that they're put on there tight. It's just that it's been, like I say, it's been over a year since those things have been exercised, which once again, is no one's fault but my own. So, I'm going to try to do this little ratchet thing here. But, oh, okay, look at that, we got it out. It doesn't look that bad. A couple torn things, but that could have been just me taking it out too. So that's good to know. I think that putting a new one in is probably just time to do that anyway before it goes bad. I think my concerns of it before might have just been psychosomatic. So here's a look at the old one. All the teeth are, all the veins are in place. There is a couple that are broken right here, but that could have been, this one's broken, that one's broken, that one's broken. But those could have been just in the pulling out process. But anyway, like I was saying, see this? I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but there are threads right there at the top, and then the spline on the inside. So the idea is that you thread something in there that has a hole in it with a bolt, and then you screw the bolt in like that, and it pulls it off. So I'm going to use this old one, not as a spare, because I have a better spare than that, and I'm going to have two new ones coming. But what I want to do is have a setup like that ready to go, because I really like that setup with the bolt. That would have made this job much easier. Now before I start lubing this up, I need to make sure that it's the same as the other one. It certainly looks the same, and as you can see the threads, you can see them a little better here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to look at my glasses. Yeah, I don't even know if this one has threads. Maybe that was just a... This was... That definitely has threads on this side. But it's a different manufacturer. Well, that's where we're at. So now the next thing I got to do, I've got a big O-ring, meaning a fat O-ring, a thin O-ring, and a paper gasket, and some lube. Before I lube all this up, I got to figure out which order all those go in. Okay, upon a closer inspection, there is only one O-ring, and I think these other paper gasket and thinner O-rings are so that one kit will fit different housings. Now, actually, that's a problem right there. You see that? The new one is much smaller than the big one. So maybe the little one is the same size. But you know what? The little one is the same size, but it's going to be too thin, I think. I could use the old O-ring over again, but it's probably breaking some engineering cardinal rule somewhere. Doesn't seem to be hurting. But you can see that it's a lot, much thinner. And the one that is the right thickness, that's the right thickness, but it's way too big. Yeah, I'm going with putting the old one back in. I'm going to go with the old O-ring in there again. And because I can't see any threads on here, I don't feel any threads on here, I'm thinking that my whole thread thing doesn't matter anymore. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some lube on the O-ring and try to stick it in place. And if we have any debris on the O-ring, hopefully that will clean it up. Alright, now I'm going to go and lubricate the impeller and get it all slippery. Now it's my thinking, this didn't really come with any instructions, but when I've done this before on other boats, I'm thinking that a lot of people say, oh, you got to make sure that you get all the veins going the same way. And I don't think that's true. I think that you can put them in any way it goes, because as soon as it makes a rotation, they extend and then go tight to the other side. So it doesn't matter if you get them in all backwards or half backwards and half forwards. It really doesn't matter, because they're going to straighten out once you start it. Ooh, that got dirty. Sorry about that. That's probably better. All right. Woo! A lot of sweat later. We get the moment of truth. I've opened up the Seacock. Now we're gonna fire it up. First thing I'm gonna do is listen, hopefully hear some water coming through. Okay, I saw some water that was probably left over in the system. There's some water coming out. You see we have the ladder down because we were swimming earlier. I think we're blowing through the air in the system now. Yeah, look at that. All right. Oh, she's pumping out good now. Now, we got to go check the engine room to make sure that we're not leaking. This is why I went deck instead of engineering. I don't know how you engineers do it. Alright, next thing is I gotta get in the water again and check out the through hull. Huh.